ain't going back. Not gonna buy into all that. Hey, hey, ain't gonna hide, gonna let all the fears slide. Got Mother Nature on my side. Got all of the loving.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome once again to the New Now. I'm delighted to have these two guests on for the first time. Ryder Lee of Raised by Giants, and probably our viewers are very familiar with Cambell from Autodidactic, as we've done so many together. Today, I figured we'll tackle the topic of doing fine at the end of time. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
How's it going?
Well, Ryder, you and I were talking a bit off camera about a little bit. You've interviewed David Dubine a couple of times, and Cambell has had him on as well. And I guess it's a good place to start with end of time scenarios. You know, what's going on, what could be going on, and how to make sure you're doing fine in relation to all of that.
Well, I don't really think that people understand how finite our society is. Literally everything can be gone in a matter of minutes. One flip of the switch, internet goes down, we're screwed. You know, Everything has been digitized, documents have been digitized, records have been digitized, money is basically digital money. We've been working with digital money for a really long time. It's not coming, it's already here, right? Banks, books, grocery stores, the post office. And I understand why they did it that way, right? It's for efficiency and getting things done quicker. But the problem comes is when your entire system is built on top of that, right? And really nothing is going to last. Nothing really is finite within our reality. And if the internet goes down, this generation literally has nothing. People, are thinking that they're making some form of difference on the internet, and maybe they are. Maybe we are. We possibly could be, but if everything can just be erased and in 100, 200, 300 years, no one would even know that we existed. And I think that that is a very high possibility. And the last 23 years has been about nothing but the internet. It's how everyone communicates. It's how people get their voice out there through social media. You create content, right? And what a lot of people's lives revolve around is the internet. And if you take that away, we have nothing. And I'm willing to bet within 100 to 300 years, if the internet is completely wiped, people in the future would not even know that we exist. All of my work has been done on the internet. My channel, my podcast, my documentary, it's all on the internet, and it can be taken away very easily. And if by some chance the internet gets wiped, there wouldn't be any physical evidence to prove any of the work that I've done and the work that a lot of other people have done. And people can say, oh, well, make sure everything's backed up onto a hard drive and all that or whatever. And I do that, but this is the thing. Who's to say that in 100 years time or 200 years time or sometime in the far distant future that people will even be able to use USB drives, right? Or a Type-C connector. We've seen how fast our technology has went. It used to be floppy disk. Now no one has a floppy disk drive. You can't even use a floppy disk. They're completely obsolete. So why do we believe that in the future USB drives won't completely be obsolete as well? So that means even if someone finds your hard drive in the future through all of the rubble and the collapse of society, if that is the direction that we're going to go, they aren't even going to be able to figure out a way to use it, which I think is the case for a lot of these lost civilizations and a lot of these lost communities. They were just using a technology that we have absolutely no idea how to figure out because it's so different than ours.
Well, it takes you right into your studies, Cambell, and Tertiaria and civilizations.
Well, all the ancient, buildings that look like they've got tech. I mean, I was talking about on an interview the other day that, when we look at that, we look at it through the eyes of our civilization, right? So we look at, the Antiquitech and think, oh, well, that was to get power to tap it so we can run machines and things. But that's probably not what they were doing. I think it was probably a lot more, energy based and based on basically the human body, right? Like making us more healthy and looking at as our body as being the ultimate machine. And it all these other things just aiding it. And I guess that's the expansive. I talk a lot about the nature grid, natural grid versus the closed circuit, which is the electronic grid, which is what which just runs us around in circles, right? And that's what they want. And yeah, we've got to a point where we're completely dependent on that. Look what happened a couple of years ago when toilet paper disappeared, right? People went crazy, but where did they all head? They headed to the shops, right? Because that's where that's the only place they know to get stuff. So if the supply chain goes down, which they want us to think is going to happen, then what happens? So the end game is we've got to take responsibility for everything, right? We've got to be able to respond to whatever comes our way, and that's really the greatest knowledge. It's not information, that's the greatest power. It's the knowledge of what to do with that, right? The knowledge of living again, which again is what sort of they've schooled out of us, right? Like even when I was in school, we still had like home ec, right? Home economics, and they teach you to cook and stuff. That doesn't exist anymore. There's hardly art anymore. We know, right? The school system is literally designed to make us good workers, and that's pretty much it. And to get us in the system, around in circles in this closed circuit. So to me, I think that all the answers lie in nature and everything else you need, right? I mean, when you think about it, everything we have all comes from nature.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I bookmarked an article that said grow your own toilet paper around that time. So for anyone listening that wants to go to nature, grow some mullein plants. Big, fuzzy, comfortable leaves that grow out there and grow very well.
I remember my dad telling me a story like that. He basically said they didn't even have toilet paper back in the 40s and 50s, and they would use like the paper that the apples came in. They'd all have a sheet and they'd save that. So I mean, even toilet papers, it's not that old, and look how dependent we all are on it. It's just, I don't know, it's a weird world.
You guys remember back? I think there was an article that I read a really long time ago that it was back in like the early, I don't know, 40s, 50s, 60s, somewhere around in there. But they were talking, it was a hoax article and it was a hoax newscast that they were talking about how spaghetti grows from trees. And if you go to the spaghetti farm, you can harvest all the spaghetti that you want. And some people actually believed it. See, my whole thing here is that it's my belief that human actions are based upon imagination. And this is something that we were kind of talking about last time. Imagination, belief, and faith. It's not objective observation. And I'm pretty sure that the government, the military, and politicians know this as well. And you can pretty much track back anything and everything to emotion and fear. And the question then becomes, how can we control human imagination? Can we shape and mold the world's collective destiny? If so, how do we do this? Well, how you do it is by making sure that the source of the control is never identifiable by the public, right? And then you can effectively prepare everyone for unavoidable changes, push the collective mind in the desirable direction that you want. And that's why it's important that the intelligence agencies, the advertising companies, are very interested in mythology and things that may or may not be true. So therefore they can weaponize it. This is why we've seen a rise in the contactee community. We've seen a rise in UFOs and ufology, which is used to play with our imagination, which represents experiments in the direction of weaponized folklore, raising superstition, mental illness, and paranoia.
It's interesting when you say weaponized folklore, in that, all the dramas in North America were based on, the Old West, the Wild West, which never existed the way they share it. And, being in Japan, all the folklore is the samurais and all the dramas here, like all the old dramas are samurais. And, if you look, Cambell and I have talked about this, old pictures of samurais, they look like the three of us more than Asian people. They look very white. They're very Tertarian. So even the history that they believe is true here, is probably, like you said, weaponized folklore to put people to sleep. Oh, this is how our past was. Now we've evolved. Now this is the future. It used to be the Wild West. Even recently, I was watching some of the Wild West movies that the old ones from 50s, 60s, 70s, came on, and it obviously looks like bullshit. You can see now they're actors pretending and sitting on horses and all that. But when you're a little boy, I used to go to those shows too, and you used to have that imagination. And they seem so real to you. You go, oh my goodness, wouldn't it be good to ride a horse and carry a gun and to be free on the range and to all of, drink whiskey and gamble and all these things you used to see in those. And then you look back, as an adult with a bigger perspective, like you've mentioned, realizing a lot of this stuff is just, Hollywood, the magic wand of imagination of bringing stuff that's not real to your face. And, you start to see through it, as you said, Ryder, and it allows you to see, like, what do you do now? Like how do you become fine when you realize everything you've been passed along, it's like a hangover from the wine the next day and it's all gone.
Well, and you see that with
Yeah.
superhero movies nowadays. Sorry, Cambell, go ahead.
Oh, you're right. You go.
No, it's all good. I talked for a minute. So your turn to talk.
Yeah, I call it the overlay, right? It's like this reality that they try and lay on top of our real reality, and it's an imagined reality, and that's why they have, school, the media, songs, all this. There's so much effort in going into giving us ideas and showing us the world that they want, because I still think it comes back to that, those who wish to rule us aren't creators, right? They don't have that creative spark. You mentioned before, right, about the world's run off imagination, right? And we have that, but they don't. So they get us to think and to imagine the future they want, and then we create it for them, right? So this is, really, we've heard it from all the great philosophers, go inside, right? The answers are inside. And I think that's true. We need to start asking ourselves and contemplating, right? Like spending, because the other thing that this, L circuit does is it wants our attention, which is probably the greatest commodity at the moment, I think, is attention, right? Especially when you look at those that wish to rule us, versus us. And so, yeah, that this is, everything's based on getting our attention, getting us to believe what they want to believe. We go out and create it. But if we go inside, and contemplate and get that time, which they don't want us to have, our own thoughts, then I think we start to get in tune, we start to get answers, have unique thoughts again, right? Because they're turning the whole world into an echo chamber. Like whatever you believe or are researching, I mean, you can see it, right? If I like listen to music, like I listen to like 2 songs on YouTube, and then you go back and everything's music, right? After 2, so you could they just mess with it. Whatever you look at, just surround you with that, because they don't want you, expanding. This is what the closed circuit is, right? It's contraction. That's the opposite to nature. So yeah, I mean, I think all the answers are inside, and that's really going to be the way out is in, as they say.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point, this currency and time and attention, because I don't think the currency is like paper money. It's not anything physical. I think the most valuable currency is time and attention. You can get money back. You can make more money always. You can get more physical things if you need them and you work hard and you do those things. But what you're never going to get back is time. And I don't think people really realize how valuable of a currency time is, and your attention and what you put the direction of your mind into. I think that is the ultimate currency.
Yeah, we used to take current affairs in school, I remember, and it's got a whole new definition now. Current affairs, like moving you in a different direction in a way that things are going. You used to think it just meant news or what's going on. And, even the news sections used to have current affairs. I remember a current affairs section in the newspapers I used to read, when I was younger and growing up. So it's given it a whole new idea of the people that want to control us, as you say, Cambell. Maybe they knew back then, you write down the current affairs, and then that's the way the currency, the world flows. And, as we've seen, news isn't what's happened it's all backwards in this world. They're giving you the news because they want to show you what you're going to create moving forward. It's an inverse backwards world from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's like when I was young, we used to have like the music, the top 20 and 40 and whatever. I don't know if they still have it, so you'd have your number one song. And back when I was young, I used to think, oh, that's the song that has sold the most records. But now I understand that it's not. That's the song they want to be number one. So they put it as number one, and then everyone goes out and buys the records. It's completely reversed. And same with everything, right? That's what the news is.
Very interesting, where your attention goes, where things flow, imagination. I'm happy you brought that up. And the echo chamber being that this is a reflexive reality, as Campbell said, that one person's talking about it, 100 people are talking about it. I mean, even yesterday I was watching another channel giving a different version of what happened to all the Tartarians, the inverse of what happened during, the last world wars, and that they killed them all, and blamed it on a certain group or the other group. Some say it was this side, some say it was the other side. I don't need to get into the historical shenanigans. It seems to upset a lot of people, but this fellow had a different perspective on that. That's what they were doing in World War II. Besides bombing all of the Tartarian buildings in Europe and bring it, down to their knees, they were actually killing off the last vestiges of that timeline, of that imagination, of the old world, to bring us into this new world, and it's probably what all of the so-called wars were about anyways, to shake it up, to change the timeline, to destroy everything. And it must be in their idea a lot easier now, as Ryder said, they don't have to go through the wars right now. They don't have to destroy a whole bunch of buildings. They don't have to, wipe out and bury and deny and put up, false stories all over the place. They just have to turn a switch, like you said, and then suddenly everything that is, you've said and I've said and Cambell have said is true, so to speak, and out there in this way, in this digital way, is gone. And what an easy way to wipe things, talking about could be the whole reason why they played with the toilet paper and the shit hitting the fan, is just to give people a clue as to how easy it is to to wipe the ass of civilization and leave them heading for the hills and their melon plants.
If we go into a reset, another reset, then this would probably be the easiest reset that they have ever had to do, that has ever happened. I mean, nothing is built to last, right? You buy something, it breaks very quickly. And I was talking to David Dubine about this too. And you have to buy a new one, right? I mean, that's consumerism. If you look at the light bulb conspiracy, there's a fantastic documentary made on that in 2010. But the things that seem to last are appliances and tools from decades ago. The refrigerators from the 60s and the 70s, those are still working. I think that's going to outlast nuclear war, probably, if that ever happens. Those refrigerators are so freaking sturdy, right? Now, if you walk into an antique store to this very day, all the stuff that's in that antique store still works. It's all very usable because it's mostly manual things like cranks and presses, and they're all built very well. They're built to last. Now, I've asked several people this, not only on my show, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on it, and I think it's going to solidify my point here. And I've even talked to people about this in the sauna at the gym, because I like kind of picking people's brains and getting what normal everyday people think about, right? And I was like, if you were to take us 100 to 200 years in the future, let's just say that we all got into a time machine right now, went 100 years into the future. What do you think would be in that antique store? Would it be the same stuff that's in it today, or the stuff that's being made today? And everyone that I've talked to says the same stuff that's in it to this day is still going to be in it in 100 years.
Yeah. I just look at the buildings, right? Like all these old buildings that have been around, but they just don't seem to wear down or break down. All the old big, old world buildings, and they throw up buildings today and that, and they're done in 10 years. I mean, housing, some of the housing, in Australia, because they're just whipping up these little, prefab houses on tiny blocks so quick. I used to do work and put like window covers and things like this on houses, and most of the windows weren't square. You know, the walls would wob. Like, they're clearly not built to last. It's like, and it is consumerism, but it's also, you know, people, you know, we don't have the skills. Like, we don't take pride in any of this stuff anymore. Like, we don't really, you know, tradespeople are just, you know, people who know how to do what everyone else has done, if you know what I mean. We're tradespeople back in the day, like woodworkers and that, they used their imagination as well, right? They weren't just set to a script kind of thing. You know, a mechanic today just works on cars and fixes them. He doesn't go out and build, you know, cars or have any creativity in there, really. And I think that's what they've taken, right? And, you know, as far as the old stuff, you know, a lot of people think, oh, you know, hand press, you know, having to do things, oh, that's so old fashioned, that's so antiquated. But, you know, we've got all these devices today that do things for us, and most people tell you they're bored. Right? They've got this time, they don't know what to do with it. You know, and what's the other thing? We're all unhealthy. You know, like, so if you're out there using your body and using these hand crank machines and that and do things, you're going to stay healthy and you're not going to be bored and you're going to get satisfaction. So I think we've been sold this whole, you know, massive lie, right, that this technology is going to make our lives better, but it's fast becoming apparent that it's not. It's doing the exact opposite.
You know, and it's all tied into the grid as well. You know, it's all tied into electricity, right? So all these modern conveniences are in the L or the other L, the, you know, the AC/DC or whatever grid. And as Ryder said, how hard is it? You know, they turn it off. You know, look at all the Tesla drivers that were stranded in the winter in the United States when they couldn't charge their cars in Chicago or something. And then, you know, it used to be you fill up a car, you know, gas, you can go for a full day. If it broke, you can find the wire that was missing, you know, tighten a few screws, you know, blow some dust out of the carburetor, and then you're good to go. You know, I remember looking at old cars and being able to fix them, even though I didn't know what was going on, by using some logic of how things flowed. Okay, this is blocked, this hose, you fix it, it's gone. There's, you know, a loose, you need a new battery, good, you're good to go. Now, you know, you look at a computer and who's setting these up? You know, what sort of consciousness, you know, what sort of life is working from this way of computer technology, like you said, that's easy to shut off. You know, it seems to me, if we're going to like segue a little bit, there could be a little bit of non-human intelligence going on that's kind of directing us towards something that we don't have any control over because we don't naturally know how to fix computers, right? You know, we don't naturally, like if you look at a car, you can naturally figure out, you used to be able to naturally figure out how it works. You know, I talk with a fellow too, like if, you know, you see wood, you burn it, it's like almost a natural thing, right? It's like some heat, you set it up, you do it. No one needs to really teach you, so to speak. It just seems like a natural flow of how things work. Now you look at a computer, I don't see anything natural about that, you know, not for me anyways. You know, it seems like a Silicon Valley or Silicon life instead of, you know, organic life, which is, isn't that what they say? You know, a euphemism for that? Oh, that's just organic. Like it's a natural flow of things. Like you can just figure it out. You know, your intuition, as you like, or your imagination, which are or should be attached to each other, instead of these other things where you look in a cell phone, you go, how does that work? I don't know. I better buy a new one. You know.
Yeah, man. You crack a screen on a cell phone and you got to go and get it. You know, it's like ridiculous.
Well, also too, it may be that they make electronics so complicated and to where a normal person can't figure them out, so that they can run the monopoly on it, so that they are the only ones that can create it, so that nobody else can create a cell phone to create a conflicting company to compete with a lot of these other big companies, right? So they'll be like, oh, we'll just make it as complicated as possible. We'll put all these processors, all these little chips, and all this stuff, so no one can really figure out how it works or how it runs, so that they can't duplicate it, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I agree, man. It just keeps us in the dark. That's why, you know, people keep saying, you know, why doesn't someone create, you know, another internet or another this or and it's because, you know, how do you even like? I don't even know how I would even start or contemplate how to start doing something like that. And even, you know, though we kind of imagine that there's all these, you know, really smart people out there that are building all this stuff, I think, you know, the truth is it's probably a much smaller group than we think, and they're probably all, you know, owned, right? But it does seem that there's another intelligence out there, right? I mean, you know, before, you know, 4 years ago, everyone was saying all the time, you know, how do we advance so fast? You know, you got the meme of, you know, the first plane flight in 1912, and then, you know, by World War One, they had like, planes everywhere and bombers, and then technology. It's gone very quickly, right? So is there something behind it? Because now we've got the rise of AI. What exactly is AI? Because, I think there is an AI, but I don't think it's what they're presenting. I don't think it's ChatGPT. I think that's an algorithm. But, there seems to be something else out there, right? This in, whatever, intelligence or something that seems to be controlling, a percentage of our population, right? To basically control us.
I don't think that is out of the realm of possibility, but I think the question becomes, well, if that's the case and that is true, are they physical or are they not physical? Is it a consciousness? Are they in some sort of physical body? And I don't think so. I think that if that is the case and there is something that is controlling us, and again, I'm not saying that it is true, but it would have to be some sort of consciousness. It would have to be some sort of different entity, like a plasma being, like a plasma entity or some kind of consciousness entity that would be able to infiltrate into people through consciousness, or be born upon the earth through consciousness. So they would put their consciousness into a shell and then they would go on like that. I'm not in the camp of that there are physical entities outside of our realm. I just don't think that it's possible. And if it is, they're not coming here. They're not.
Yeah, exactly right.
Like, why
They
would
just
they?
can't. A
100 million
physical
light years
entity,
away.
a physical entity that is different than us, that lives on a different planet, can't just come here. We have a different sun. We have a different atmosphere. Our oxygen is different. Theirs is completely different as well. There's no way that a physical entity from outside of our planet could come here and walk around. I 100% believe that is impossible. Now, what they could do, again, is transfer or take their consciousness from wherever they are and somehow superimpose it or transfer it into a physical shell or avatar, which you can get into the the cyborg talk or the clone talk. Now, I'm not saying that either one of those things are real, but if they are, that would be a good reason to create them, right? To create a fully animated cyborg or to create a clone shell of someone, so then you can transfer a consciousness from some entity that is not from here into that clone or into that cyborg entity, and then it can walk around here.
Well, I heard that TVs were created to originally, to communicate with the spirit world, with the spirits. And that was the original intent when they developed the TV, however long in the 30s or 40s or whenever it was set up. And if imagination is real, we've talked about that, why wouldn't it be possible for a different kind of life that's not organic? Life that's attacking CO2, which seems to be the case right now, a life which does seem to be terraforming. I mean, if you look at any big city, especially where I am here in Japan or even, New York or whatever, and you look at it from above, it looks like a computer chip at this point, right? The grids and the skyscrapers and all of the other things. So maybe it's a silicon life. I mean, as you said, Ryder, how hard would it be? They've convinced everyone to walk around with a cell phone and to look in a window, and how many people say, where's this information coming from? How many people say, oh, this is the news or this is the weather, and not so many people will go to the bottom and question, well, where is this centralized information coming from? Who is figuring this out? If you've talked to any politician, and I've talked to a few, you can look in Biden's eyes or anybody's eyes, or the guy from Canada, that moron over there. It's pretty obvious that these guys aren't smart enough, to be figuring this out on their own. That's so obvious it's ridiculous. So, and it could be those 5 people sitting in a big house somewhere, or it could be a projection of intelligence from somewhere else to this particular place. And I guess that bodes the question is what's going on and why, and where does that leave us at the end of time?
Yeah, I mean, we have King Solomon, right, who built the temple with apparently with the help of demons, which are basically sigils, which are logos, right, which are everywhere today. They've even linked up sigils to emojis and to computer chips. And then we have like John Dee through to what was his name? Who summoned Lamb? Name's just disappeared. Alistair Crowley, like he, apparently summoned that entity called Lamb that looked like a grey, what they tell us are grey aliens. And then, we have all these possessions and that. So, there is evidence that there is some kind of a, entity intelligence out there somewhere that's not us. And I kind of think that, everything's kind of here in this space. I see things as frequencies. So, there could literally be other, realms, let's say, inhabiting the same space as us, but they're on a different frequency, because we know that we only see from infrared to ultraviolet. And you may have heard of the stories of Vietnam, where they gave the fighter pilots red glasses and to help them see in the dark, but they ended up seeing demons and devils and things.
Really?
There's also purple glasses, which is the other end of the spectrum. You've got the red and the where they say you can see auras and things with them. They've obviously been banned. So, and the demiurge, and we've got all these stories. So, I mean, I think it's, again, possible, definitely, that there's some entity out there that can influence. I think it can influence, and that's all it can do, but in the end, I think people need to give over to it, right? I don't think it can jump in and kick you out of your body or something. But we have all these stories, right? You've got to invite the vampire in, right? Like, people sell their soul, like they don't get it stolen, like they agree. So I think, and we could just, you've got the devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other. It could even just be self-talk, and maybe we're creating these. I don't know, but there's definitely some other influence on this world that we're not privy to, that we can't see.
Were you thinking of Edward Kelly, John Dee and Edward Kelly?
Yeah, was that and they were back, and they were the first ones really to get involved with spells and all that kind of stuff, weren't they? And the grimoires, and it probably all comes from Solomon.
Yeah, I think John Dee was the advisor
Queen Elizabeth
Queen Elizabeth I. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they say one of the
they
first
channeled this group. Oh, sorry. Channeled this group of beings called Enochians, or Enochian angels.
That's right.
So isn't that interesting, right? One of the first people that John Dee supposedly was one of the pseudonyms for Shakespeare too, back in the day. One of the people that did the writing, and the first person with English and
spellcasting.
Yeah. So it makes it really fascinating to see, now that we're talking about how do you protect yourself, right? How do you come back full circle? How are you doing fine, at this end of time? They've talked about the reset. I remember 4 years ago walking on the subway here and just hearing about it. The reset's coming. They're playing, from these speakers, throughout the system here with millions of people, and it was really creepy to me, right? That people get used to hearing computer voices. Even someone will put on a voice right now, and please pay attention, please be polite, when you go to a shopping center. And like, I always go, why are people listening to these disembodied voices? That's what we're getting trained to, and listening. Don't go this way, you should go this way, or it's an extra $5, or take your children home today. And you're going like, so many people have been well trained, or intrained or ingrained, for these disembodied voices, which are probably where TV comes from, radio, all of it, the original source. That even when I was little, I used to get a lot of my ideas on how to be alive, or my imagination, from the TV. This is how a man is. This is what a relationship is. This is what you want to do when you get older. This is how you feel sexy. This is how you feel strong. Like you said, this is the #1 song. Go buy that tomorrow. You want to be with the cool kids. These are the pants you wear, and this is the haircut you have. And everyone's being different while they're being the same. And it's interesting to see how we've been trained to listen to these disembodied voices, whether it's from the computer or the cell phone or even a speaker in the school. I go through the schools here, and you hear, you used to get those announcements when you were little, and you would pay attention to them. So maybe more than just the information when you're ingrained and you get schooled, could be even how we are trained, as we take it back to the beginning of this conversation, how we're trained to use our imagination. Instead of using it to create something new, we're using it to recreate what we're being told, which is not to the best benefit of our, happy, long, and intelligent life.
Yeah, really quickly, I want to go back just a few to this John Dee and Edward Kelly thing, because to my knowledge, John Dee and Edward Kelly, these entities that they were channeling, they required blood sacrifice for the information and the technology that they were channeling in. And
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but anything that requires any kind of blood sacrifice is probably not the best thing to be communicating with. And
Yeah.
and this is a really wild connection here. So John Dee ended up in prison. Edward Kelly ended up in one of the German kingdoms. So all of the information that they had channeled through these blood offerings went with Edward Kelly to Germany. And Germany wasn't called Germany back then, it was called Prussia. And during that time, it was just a bunch of different kingdoms. But then if you fast forward into the mid 1800s into the Sonora Aero Club in Northern California, you'll see the case of the airship mystery. And who sponsored this? This was Prussia sponsoring how to create these airship craft. And Germany has had a huge influence, which again, it wasn't Germany then. It wasn't Germany until a few years later, but it was Prussia then. It's had this influence around the occult, channeling, spirits, and all this kind of what people would describe as like woo-woo type things. But it's just interesting because the whole airship mystery of the mid 1800s in Northern California, they were creating and building what people would claim to be UFOs nowadays.
Yeah.
And flying saucers, but it was human technology. And if you look back through the newspapers of that time, you'll see that people are spotting weird, strange things in the sky. And this was like decades and decades before the Wright brothers flew at Kitty Hawk.
Yeah.
So it's just a really weird connection there. And then you fast forward a little bit into World War II, you see the Galaka Bell technology, which was supposedly using the exact same kind of technology that the Sonora Aero Club was using as well. They were using a green spinning mercury fuel additive. The Germans during World War II was using a red spinning mercury fuel additive, which supposedly gave off a lot of radiation. So it's just thought that was a very interesting connection there. Walter Bosley has written several books about the Sonora Aero Club, but I just thought that it was important to mention.
Yeah. I mean, cigar-shaped UFOs, right? Remember that one? Sound like an airship?
Yep.
Definitely.
So, and of course, with World War II and Mr. Moustache Man, they were running around the world, right, looking for relics and things, and connected to the whole Brill Society. So there's a whole chain of events, and then you can take that forward to those, the top scientists and rocketeers and that were taken across in Project Paperclip and formed NASA, and so now they're in America, right? So it's there's definitely a chain of something, of some kind of knowledge or something, and not to mention that, Germany in World War II advanced very quickly, right, with its tech. Where did all this stuff really come from? All this rocketry, all the airship, all the stuff, right? And why were they chasing relics? Was that something they were told to do? I mean, it seems very unlikely that someone who got to the point of ruling a country, if it happens the way we're told, would then become so obsessed with some ancient story of some, magical relic that they put all the funds of the country into running around looking for these things, right? So there's obviously some more knowledge there that whoever it was knew that these relics were real and actually did have power of some kind.
Yeah, and you're talking about Project Paperclip there. That's a very interesting one. But people really tend to look over the fact that Russia officially got more paperclip Germans than the United States.
I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that either. Interesting.
The Russians' version of Project Paperclip brought 2,500 former German scientists and specialists were relocated to the Soviet Union, along with 4,000 family members were relocated as well. So that totals about 6,500 Germans relocated to Russia after World War II officially. And officially, the United States got 1,600. Now, that number can be fictitious. It's supposedly unofficially closer to the range of 10,000. But again, that's official documentation. The 1,600 came into the U.S. So Russia actually got quadruple the amount of German scientists, and they did it in one large lump replacement, right? The United States did it over a period of, I believe, 6 to 7 years, maybe even longer. But Russia just did it all at one time, all in one lump. So, and I'm pretty sure that they got them first. So that means, well, they had the first pick. So the United States kind of got the leftovers and the people that maybe weren't the best at what they were doing. And Russia got all the people first, which then, begs the question of the Cold War, what's going on there? Why did we do that? Was it because our Germans were at odds with each other's Germans? I don't know.
And then the blood sacrifices, right? Wasn't Stalin after that? So they starved millions of people and killed millions of their own population. The United States as well has been at war for, hundreds of years nonstop. I've heard, one after the next, one after the next. So if they're using blood sacrifices to power, what you guys just mentioned, in the Project Paperclips or whatever they were called going to Russia, it seemed to me that's still going on. They're looking for those vampires, a non-ending supply of human sacrifice, right into what they're doing, recently in different parts of the world, supposedly, today. More blood sacrifice, more bringing about, pain and suffering, more child sacrifice. No doubt about that too, and then that brings about, the idea of how they're powering what you've mentioned, these crafts that they're building. Maybe it's not a physical thing that they're looking into building, beyond the cigar shapes or the bell shapes. Maybe it's more of something, as you mentioned, mercury, which if you look at the old alchemists, they talk about, there was a special kind of mercury they used to do in the gold transformation, right? Wasn't to transform lead to gold, it was the transformation of humanity or the human energy towards something of a higher level. Wonder if it's all tied together.
Yeah, mercury's interesting, right? It's the only metal that was liquid, but that amalgams that basically will just join with another metal, right? It will just envelop it. So it's, who knows? But I mean, I think, the thing is, there's so much information come out, right, in the last 4 years since everyone's, been waking up and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's on purpose, right, to confuse us. And again, it's the attention thing. So everyone was looking here, is this right? Is this right? To listen to that person, is that person a shield? And, I always say it's the 80-20 rule, right? In every truth, there's some lies. In every lie, there's some truth. But, I think the way out is in, right? Like we can spend our lives, trying to work out what outside of us is correct and true, or we could spend that time working out what inside of us is correct and true. And I think that's probably more important, right? Because once you know who you are, then you can really start to do things differently that are yours, right? I mean, one of our biggest problems is people are just copying each other, right? There's no new stuff coming out. And you see it on, YouTube and all these platforms. Someone gets an idea and everyone just copies it. It's crazy. So, I think that the way to go forward is really to go inside, but to understand that, it's you, right? You're really the only person you can rely on. You're really the only person who knows what you're thinking, and you've got everything you need. We're taught that we need all this stuff from outside of us, and we need other people, and we need all this support and all this blah, 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 right? Run with the herd. But I think the most powerful people and the people who affect, this place the most are the ones who know who they are, and they're sure of who they are and what they want to do. And so they just do it. that they don't waste time looking for people to come with them or to support them or for this or for that. They just start walking. And I think once you start doing that, then everything that you need tends to come, to you, right? Where we are taught to do it the other way around. Get everything we need first, and then I can start, So yeah, I think that's the way forward is really to, they've just depowered us so much. The average person doesn't really think that they're worth much, doesn't think they can do much to change, anything. But to me, that's the biggest lie of all. We are the power as far as I'm concerned, and we just need to take it back, as they say, right?
Even Ryder mentioned in our last chat, which was very interesting, how, he went through his own challenges and you have to face them 1,000 times until you change, which is very inspirational. And a lot of people will try once or twice to do something new and then give up when it doesn't work. And, we've all seen that sometimes, how many times did you have to try something new when you were a little boy before you learned how to walk, before you learned how to do well in talking to ladies, before you learned, how to dress or dance? I mean, probably instinctively you practiced 1,000 times before you learned a new skill. Like how much baseball practice do these guys do before they can hit a home run in the major leagues? It's like 20 years practice every day, 8 hours a day before they finally figure it out. And in the modern age, as you've said, where people are getting used to instant gratification, they go, I tried that twice, didn't work. Next, where if you really consider the deeper aspects of how you learn, maybe you have to do something for 10 years, before you become an expert at it, 1,000 times before you figure it out. Maybe that's how, as Cambell said, you do find at the end of time is figure out what you need to do and don't give up if it doesn't work the first, second, or 100th time.
That's very important because everyone learns in a different kind of way. And I think that has been the problem with the school systems. I know we talked a little bit about the school systems on our previous show, but they want to blanket everybody with the same kind of learning curriculum, right? When that's not how everyone learns. So therefore you get people that don't learn that way and they can't get a hold of it. See, I've always learned from repetition and watching other people kind of do things. And if I can watch someone do something a few times in a row, then I can mostly do it. That's how I played musical instruments growing up, was by memory, by muscle memory. I watch someone play something, then I would be able to play it. And other people learn in different ways. Some people learn by like studying things and reading books, and which I read as well. But I think that we've gotten to a point within our society that we've just tried to take we've been led to believe that the same type of learning process works for everyone when it doesn't. And no one has that individuality like a teacher or even in college, it goes all the way up into college. They don't really take that one or two or handful of people aside and be like, hey, here's another way that you can figure this stuff out. And when people, whenever, especially children, they'll think that they're dumb, or they'll think that they're not smart, or they'll think that they're stupid because they can't learn the same way that other people learn. And they think, well, why am I not understanding this? Why am I not getting this? Well, it's because the curriculum and the way that it's being taught to you isn't the way that you comprehend things. And that's been, I think, a huge downfall of our society as a whole, is there's not any individualism to the school system, to the colleges, and to education. It's just all blanketed with the exact same rules, the exact same curriculum, and there's no individuality to it.
Yeah, man, be autodidactic. Self-education, right? Like I remember with maths, like when I was in school, that they'd even make you do show you're working out, and the working out had to be a certain way. And my brain didn't work that way, and I'd always do it a different way. And my way was much quicker, by the way, much less steps than that. And I'd always get the right answer, but I'd always get marked down because I hadn't done the working out. But I refused to. I was just like, well, that's dumb. I don't understand it. But this is the thing. Most people, get sort of hammered and think, oh, it's me. I'm the stupid one, where I guess I was lucky and arrogant enough to think that the teachers were stupid and I was right. So I just kept going. But it's, this is the thing. They just want to control our thought process. So, the further you can get away from that, and I used to think a lot about this concept of natural thought or original thought, and the fact that we just don't have it. It's very, very rare, right? Even in your own mind to have original thoughts. Like most of the stuff, it's playbacks of other stuff or other people's opinions. So, just focusing on that, like what's my thought? What am I thinking? What's my message? Just, in whichever way, right? Meditation, and meditation can be anything. It can be gardening. It can be working on a car, right? And then suddenly you get it. Oh, that's how to fix it. But when we're trained so much to just repeat, right? School again. The teacher stands up there, gives you information, and you're only smart if you can repeat back.
Okay, fellows, I'm going to take a short break. Keep sharing.
You're stupid. Oh, yep. So yeah. I mean, that's a change we've got to break, right? I've said one of my favorite sayings is the statue is not finished when there's nothing more to add. It's finished when there's nothing more to take away. And I think that's what happens to us. We get all this crap put on us, and then it's the job of us stripping away and knowing what to get rid of. And then we get left with ourselves, and then we can start to think clearly again.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you're very lucky, and several of us are very lucky within school that we just we doubled down on our own thought process, and we were like, hey, like this is the way that works for me, and we didn't get dissuaded by teachers and people telling us the way that they think we should be doing stuff. And I think that that's a very important thing, because I don't believe that a lot of people can do that, and it's very unfortunate that it's that way. And when you look at because I've known several people throughout my life that got involved in drugs and became major alcoholics because they were just different than everyone else. They couldn't find their home of people. They couldn't find their group of people. So then they just turned to drugs and alcohol to fill that void within themselves, and not really realizing that this is a lonely journey, bro. This is a lonely ass journey. And you really have no one other than yourself. And it's good to do these types of shows and be with other people and stuff. But I think finding that and realizing and taking responsibility for your actions and your decisions, you have no one but yourself. You are your own individual. You got to swim through this life alone, basically. And realizing that and paving your own way, and the dedication and the responsibility and the persistence is very important. It's like you were just mentioning earlier. Some people, they just do something a few times and then they're like, oh, well, it wasn't successful, it wasn't good. You got to just keep hammering away at that thing and chipping away at it, and eventually that will pay off. And it's probably not going to be tomorrow. It's probably not going to be next week, next month, next year. It might be 10 years down the road. But the thing about it is people really aren't successful in that avenue until they're in their mid 30s or even into their 40s. They really don't start getting, that's if they've stayed on that track and broke away from what other people want them to do, and they're trying to go down their own path. Because normally your parents are like, why do you want to do that? Don't do that. Don't be a filmmaker. Don't do all that, because that's not going to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
But they want that instant gratification, and that's what a lot of this society has been built upon, has been instant gratification, right? We want the newest thing, the quickest thing, the easiest thing to get us from point A to point B. When the long road, which is what I'm calling it now, the long road is way more fulfilling. Now, the long road does take more work and time and effort, but in the end, you're going to reap more rewards.
Isn't it wonderful that we probably don't need anyone else? I mean, that's the beauty of it. I would say you're born with everything you need to get along. You're being taught from the time you were little that you need, as Cambell said, you need this, you need that, you need the other thing, you need money, you need a relationship, you need a blender, whatever. And, to come full circle and figure out you don't need nothing, right? You're breathing, you're alive, one step in front of the other, you can figure it out. And if no one's with you, well, that's wonderful. The Toltec said, I remember reading a book which stuck with me to this day, that he makes loneliness his art. And I thought it was a beautiful way of putting it, to make loneliness your art and to create what you need to do. You find yourself alone, make art with your loneliness and see what you can do from there. And then, since this chat is about how we do fine at the end of time, maybe that's how you do it. You have to be okay with being alone. You have to be okay with being autodidactic. You have to be okay with failing 100 times before you succeed at the 110th. Maybe we're holographic learners. I'm thinking as well, like Campbell said, I had the same experience. I would never show my work, and I got into arguments with my math teachers. I said, "You're an idiot. I don't have to show my work. I got the right answer." That, because maybe you're being trained to think instead of use your intuition. I would say that's what schooling really does. It beats your intuition out of you, because if you can come up with the answer, what are you using? Who cares, right? It doesn't matter. But I don't think they're after the answers. They're not. They're after, good little slaves to listen. Show your work means that you've got to do it the same way as everyone else, like Ryder said. So this is the only way you get full grades. This is the only way you get that A gold star. This is the only way you get that job. There's no other way. This is it. And perhaps that is what leads, as I caught the end of that, Ryder, the alcoholism and the drugs and what the indulgence and whatever, because you think there's the only way and you're not fitting in. And so what do? Well, try and make yourself feel better any way you can.
Yep. Yeah, man, they give us all the options too, don't they? Whatever you want, you can get it. But if it's a natural herb, then you probably can't. But yeah, mistakes, right? Everything, take one, take two. This is what people think it's a mistake, but it's not. It's just a mistake, right? So you just take two, take 100, just keep going until you get there. But this, I think, is also from people who don't believe in themselves. That they don't think they've got what it takes, and subconsciously they're telling themselves, "I'm going to fail. I can't do this." But in the conscious mind, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to do it. I'll give it a go." But of course, the subconscious wins, and like 2 or 3 times, they're like, "Oh, see, I was right. I knew it wouldn't work." And of course, it's all starting to do with the subconscious, which is what they work on, right, to program us. But I mean, I've just over the last, kind of week or so, really sort of come to terms with that it is only you, right? It'd be great to have help, and it'd be great to have this, and it'd be great to have that. But the thing is, we can't change other people. We can influence them, but we can't make people come along and want our dream or want our goals. But like I said before, if we have, the courage to walk and to keep going in that direction and to believe in it, then the people we need tend to show up anyway, right?
Mm.
But just in my life, I still was thinking, oh, I want to get this done, and I'd be thinking, oh, I need this person, or this person could help me with it. But that's all really got to go out the window. It's got to be you. What can you do? Because that's really the only thing you can affect. If you think you can affect other people and all this, you're really kidding yourself. Well, affect them, but you can't tell and make people do anything.
No,
you just can't. Except for yourself.
And to trust yourself, to learn how to trust yourself. I would say that's a key one that they don't teach you in school. To trust your guts, to trust your intuition, to trust your heart, no matter what. If there's a creator, why would the creator make a mistake in making you, right? No matter how different or weird or strange you are. You're wonderful, you're full of wonder, you should be different. And the challenge is in trusting that difference so that you can be the best you. There's a bazillion flowers. I don't want to look at the same flower every day. When I go out and I see a new one, that's what catches my eye. When I'm walking down the street, and it happens to me here a lot, since I'm in a new part of the world for myself, I see a new bird or a new plant or hear a new sound, which I do. That's what I'm interested in exploring, right? To go, oh, I didn't see that flower before. I haven't seen that before. What's that? What's that bird sound? I'm sure I haven't heard that. And that's what draws my imagination and my attention and my awareness towards something wonderful. So if people put that in their heart and realize it's amazing to be different. It's fantastic to have a different smell and a different look and a different idea and a different notion and in different ways, or a different dance, or to make different food, whatever, because that's really what the world is after. Is this expansion of difference, not the contraction where we're all one, that, which is one of those memes, which I know is a lot of bullshit that gets passed along by the new age. We're all one. No, we're not. I mean, we're all here, but we're not all one. We're all different.
which is really interesting. There's this contactee that really no one knows about. His name is Samuel Eden Thompson, and he apparently met extraterrestrials in Washington in 1950. And his entire story was really overshadowed by Kenneth Arnold and Betty and Barney Hill later on. But it's a very interesting story. And he was apparently driving his vehicle in Washington. He came across this craft. There was a ramp. He walked up to the ramp. These beings came out. There was apparently 25 different beings. There was like 15 kids, and they were supposed. He said that they were from Venus, that they were Venetians, and they gave him all of this information. And I think that the most interesting, and I'm not saying any of it's real, I don't necessarily believe in it, but I take it as information and a part of a historical record. So I think it's important to talk about. So one of the most interesting things that they told him, they said, the problem with Earth is that all of the people of Earth are born under different astrological signs. They're all born under different stars. They're all born under different planets. But the people on Venus are all born under the exact same astrological signs. So they're like a hive mind, right? And see, I don't take that as a negative thing. I don't think that it's a negative thing that we're all born under different astrological signs, because you can get into astrology and all that and see that the stars really do make a difference in our life. If you get a really, really good astrological reading, that person can literally tell you everything that's happened to you in your life and tell you what may happen to you in the future. So it really does, astrology really does make a difference in cultivating and creating our personality and the way that we live and the events that may or may not happen in the future. But I don't take that as like a bad thing, because I think that that's what makes us special here, is that we all are different. We all are born under different astrological signs. No one is born under the exact same astrological signs at any given time. And that makes us very, very special here. And some people would be like, oh, well, I want the utopian type of hive mind where everyone gets along and everyone's peaceful. Well, that's the freaking new world order, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is what the new world order is. And these people don't realize that that is actually what they're fighting for. That's really what they want. They think that they're against it, but they're really for it. If they want everything to be peace and everything to be harmony in this golden age, that is a dictatorship. Yeah. That's not this freedom that people think that it is. So
no, I mean, true freedom, and this is what most people, don't think about or like about it, is true freedom is letting everyone else be free, right? To be who they want to be. But people don't like that part of freedom. They just want their freedom, and then everyone else should do what they tell them to do. But yeah, ultimate freedom is where we're all allowed to do what we want to do. Obviously, do no harm. But apart from that, let people live, right?
I think an adult is usually an adult enough to allow others to do what they need to do, to stand back even if you don't agree with them, and to allow them to, fulfill the process they need. Because, Ryder made a good point. You don't know what another person needs. You don't know what another, you don't know. Maybe someone needs to be an alcoholic for 3 years before they stop. Maybe someone needs to be in a horrible relationship before they change their mind. Someone needs to be in a bad job before they decide to be in a good job. Someone needs to get sick of diabetes before they quit sugar. I don't know. I have no idea what someone else needs before, they fulfill their own destiny, whatever that is for them. And to allow people, that's the beauty of being alive, and how you can have your own intelligence is, to be strong enough to allow people to do what you don't like, or what you don't think they should do, or what, doesn't look good to you, but, to stand back and go, if you say so, get at it, perhaps, one day that'll help you out and that'll help the rest of us out. And who am I to say what you need to do and not do? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, well, this is a big thing that's gone on in the last, couple of years, right? Everyone running around trying to wake people up.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? Like, if you want to wake someone up, go find a mirror. Seriously, like, you can't change any. You can influence them, but the best way to influence is to change yourself and do the best you can, and people will see you and they'll go, oh, okay, and they'll learn from that. But yeah, this whole change, the way to change my world is to change the outside world. Apart from the fact that it's impossible, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. So I think, again, I think I'm probably just, repeating myself, but I think the way forward is to really focus on what we want and how we can change, and understand that that's all, that's our job, right? We don't have the right, like you said, Lorenzo, to go and change other people. Like, how do we know that someone doesn't need to go through tragedy to learn, that they're a strong person? How do we know that, someone doesn't have to go through a bad relationship to understand that they're worthy of more? This is not our business. Our business is us, and so that's, a big thing that I get out, because I know a lot of people out there are still on that sort of tangent. Let's wake the world up. Let's wake people up. But I'd implore you to, spend more time waking yourself up.
All right.
Yeah, and not only that too, the whole wake people up thing is completely ridiculous and is so backwards, because 90% of the information that they would give to wake somebody up is wrong, and that's a really big problem as well. And it's getting people on getting people off base of actually looking into themselves and going within to figure out what's actually happening with them. And I agree with that it's an individual thing, and people should be leading by example and not telling people what to believe, and just letting it go. And if people find what I've said interesting, then great. If it changed something, it gave them a new thought process, then great. If something that Cambell said changed somebody, then great. Like it shoving things down people's throats doesn't help. It doesn't do anything. It actually turns them away from the objective that you're trying to create, right? It's just about kind of just planting seeds, just throw a little interesting thing in there every once in a while. That's what I do with normal everyday people that isn't a part of this echo chamber that we've created in this community. Like, just people that I have a conversation with in the grocery store or at the gym, or like wherever it is that I am. I play stupid with those people, because they don't want to listen to someone preaching to them.
No.
I don't want to listen to someone that thinks that they know everything about everything, and I've never claimed to know everything about everything, but that's how it comes off to somebody that is not a part of this community, is that you're preaching to them and you're acting like a know-it-all. So I just act like an idiot to these people. It's like, hey, what do you think about those UFOs, dude? Do you think there's anything? You think there's anything to that? What do you think? It's military technology? And I'm like, what do you think about history? What do you think about the pyramids, dude? You think how did they build those pyramids, bro? And I just like I think that that's more important than going off on a long, huge tangent on normal, everyday people about what you believe. It's better to ask them and then kind of interject some interesting thoughts into the conversation along the way. I think that does more than telling them anything.
Yeah, honest humility. There's not enough of that around. If you're comfortable enough in your own truth in your own life, you don't care if anyone believes you.
Yep.
And if you're experimenting with the people around you, like Ryder just said, that's amazing, to see how you can allow them to figure it out. Like, a good parent isn't going to tell a child what to do. We'll just encourage them to do what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, questions, right? Just getting people to ask different questions, that I think can change people, right? If you, yell at someone and tell them blah, 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 they're just going to dump that. They don't care, right? But if you can ask them a question, like, how did they build the pyramids? That's something that is going to be in their mind, and they'll probably keep thinking on it, right? So I think, that's all I try and do is get people to ask better questions. That's my hope. And that's why I like YouTube, right? Like, you can just put up information, and if people want to watch it, they watch it. If they don't want to watch it, they don't. I'm not forcing it on anyone, So I think, yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, basically.
All right. Well, Ryder, maybe we've come to a natural conclusion to, how to do fine at the end of time. Figure yourself out, be more humble, keep at it. And if you make a mistake, do it again and again and again. Don't try and push your notions on anyone else, and figure it out for yourself. And if someone's there with you, fantastic. I'm meeting new friends. Ryder and I have had a couple of good chats, and it feels like we'll probably have several more. Cambell and I have done hundreds. And how does this happen? No idea, right? I reached out to Ryder. I did reach out to Cambell originally, but I had to be confident enough in my own ability to want to chat with people and to make these videos and to meet like-minded men to grow with before it happened. So I had to change myself first. And then I got, the cooperations and the friendships. I've even met Cambell face to face, not so long ago. So, you never know how you're going to get in the same room, shake hands, and give a hug to someone down the road just by changing who you are and how you are and what you feel like making in this life.
It's always cool meeting people from the internet in person.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's really interesting. I've met quite a few people that I've met on the internet and doing shows with. It's really cool. And some of my best friends are from this community, so yeah, it's like what you said, if you're alone and you're then okay. If you have people around you, then okay. It doesn't need to be one way or the other. Just let things flow and do things the way that you think that is the best way to do them. I mean, everything is based off of experience, right? Your experience is different than my experience, but there's no reason that a group of people can't get along and have a great conversation. And I think that is what we did here today. And thank you both. Really appreciate your time. I'd like to have you both on my channel here sometime soon.
Anytime, Ryder. I've enjoyed this and I'm ready for more.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Ryder. Yeah. And everyone out there, yeah, I think trust yourself. You've got everything you need, in your side. And if you can't see, just look a bit deeper and stay awesome, because you are.
Stay awesome. Be yourself. Keep trying. I love you all very much. Ryder, thank you so much for being here. Cambell, last second, I appreciate you being here as well. This has been an amazing chat. I'm going to get it up real soon. I'll let you guys know when it's live, and I hope to see you all very, very soon. Bye for now.
Cheers, guys.
Can't make me lie to my heart. No one tells me where I should start. Freedom first is what I say.